On this episode, we're talking about referrals, why most agencies rely on them, but few treat them as a system. We'll share lessons from the book, The Referral Code, on asking the right way, building trust, and staying top of mind.
A lot of agencies say they rely solely on referrals. This is something we hear over and over again. One thing that kind of strikes us, we've talked about it a lot whenever we hear these things, is that they don't treat referrals as a system. Okay, it's like a hope-based belief that, hey, if we do great work, people are going to tell others and then we're going to get referrals, right? So I think today we really want to talk about, what does more intentional referral generation look like? Just to kind of frame this, it's a bit different than partnerships, because we did have an episode earlier about partnerships. So I think episode 12, it's a lightweight agency partnership program. With partnerships, we talk more about kind of building something a bit scalable, more about aligning incentives and kind of building a repeatable system where two parties can grow together. So this is like with your platforms or other agencies. But I think for this conversation, we're going to talk about referrals from a perspective of good feelings, right? This desire to want your network to feel good about the experience they had with you, and then in turn, their willingness to present you with more opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, referrals are such a big part of the agency journey. We've benefited quite a bit over the years from getting great referrals into the agency that, led to really great opportunities that helped us grow. And we kind of went along this journey where we early on hoped that people would refer us work. We did good work. So, of course, people would hear about it. And we weren't very intentional about that process.
Yeah. I would say for the vast majority of our time running an agency, we were hope-based referrals. But, one book that we read together as part of our leadership team that really impacted kind of how we think about referrals. And so we'll be referencing that book throughout this episode. So the book is called The Referral Code. It's by Larry Pinsey and Phil Glosserman. Yeah, it's a very short book, but it's kind of packed with a lot of good tactics around referrals. So something that we'll reference throughout this episode. So, maybe let's begin. How can we think about referrals just, conceptually? How should we define it? Maybe we should start there.
Yeah. So the book also talks about this, but a referral is essentially a transfer of goodwill. So it's not someone doing a favor for you. It's people sharing the feeling that they had working with you with other people in their world, in their network. It's very kind of emotional from that perspective. It's all the feelings that they had, the confidence that they had working with you, the appreciation that they felt from the impact that you made, and that personal connection that they had with you. Thinking about the example of someone who has worked with you, but in general, it's how do you kind of extend that feeling that you have within one person to more people in your network?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the word that they use in the book a lot is love. I think we kind of equate that to this kind of good feeling that you might have from working with someone. We talked about this as well pre-recording where when we look back on folks that we've referred to our network, so let's say whether it's consultants, coaches, other agencies that we've worked with, it's actually all about, hey, we had a great experience working with these people. They did a great job for us. We're sending that referral to these other people who we care about, and we want them to have that same good experience as well and find the same kind of success. And that's more important, right? I think more than anything, the worst thing that could happen is if you refer someone with the kind of the good feeling, but then they end up disappointing the person who they were referred to. That is a terrible feeling. We try to be careful there, and, we're not nilly-willy just kind of referring anyone that we feel like.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about when people think about referrals, what are the wrong ways to go about seeking referrals? And we've definitely done many of these along the way, but if you want to kind of jump into some of these,
okay.
ways.
So I mean, the first one is just kind of not specific enough, and you're kind of going with this vagueness and treating referral seeking as a blunt instrument. So you just go up to somebody, you go, hey, if you know anyone that needs a website or needs a marketing help, let me know. That just kind of shows a lack of intentionality in the referral seeking. Part of that is you really have to be more specific about what is it that you're really seeking, who are the people that you actually help and how. And so there's a lot of groundwork to be done on that front. So I think that's key. First of all, just think about how you're going to ask and seek to educate first and, just give more context on who it is that you actually help.
I would say, yeah, timing is also another one. Thinking about the right moment where the person has the feeling of gratitude, saying, all right, you're reflecting on the project that you worked on together. And it's like, wow, like all these impacts and your team was so great. And like when they're in that moment, that's like the best time to ask for it. So the wrong time is like client is unhappy. They're talking about something, you wrapped up a project and they have like a survey that wasn't that great. And then you ask them, hey, by the way, do you know anyone who could benefit from our services? It's like
Oh
the
God.
wrong moment in time is, yeah, like catching them at the right time is important.
I'm sure we've felt this too, right? I mean, think about like something like home services, right? Like you get something done to your house or whatever, and then like it was a subpar experience, and they like maybe they were terrible with communication or overcharged for something, and then you're like not feeling great about it, and then all of a sudden at the end they're like, hey, can you refer us to some other
Yeah, yeah.
people?
Or
And you're
sometimes
like,
it's like
ooh,
an automated message that comes, and
right,
automated
right.
email where it's just like, hey, like really, like now you're gonna ask me for a
Yeah.
referral?
In some cases, it kind of pushes people the other way where you're like, you know what? I'm going to badmouth these folks or I'm going to leave a bad review or something. You just have to be really careful with that. And I think, yeah, part of that is what you brought up in the book, the referral code. They talk about it as like, yeah, the never ask for referrals outside a state of appreciation. So I think it's all about identifying when that state of appreciation is. And you do that simply by asking, like, hey, when was the time that, that like we did a good job for you or whatever. And just, you kind of put the potential referrer into that mindset of feeling good about when they had a good experience with you.
Thanks for listening to Agency Habits Podcast. A quick heads up, Barrel Holdings is acquiring agencies. We look for profitable firms with durable revenue and strong teams. If you're thinking about succession, de-risking, or scaling with a partner, visit barrel-holdings.com to see our buy box and set up a confidential call. Thanks.
Maybe we should just kind of jump into like how we go about building the referral engine, right? And so we talked about like avoiding the vague asks. And so first and foremost, you want to be very specific with defining who you're actually looking to help. This is like basically ICP work, right? Industry, company, size, the job title, the folks that, might be referrals. And then, what kind of situations are they in? Because, it's one thing to be like, hey, send us to CPG brands that need a website. But it's like, well, there's other situations you can get more specific on. Hey, like maybe it's after, anybody, about to launch a new product line, or hey, maybe it's after some kind of a transaction where they might have been acquired by somebody else or they sold to someone else. Maybe it's when, hey, new CMO is in town, there's an opportunity there. So yeah, kind of define these things for the types of folks. And maybe you could dive into like, yeah, who should be kind of targeted for referral seeking.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a next step is just like thinking about like who is your referral list. So like thinking about examples are like former clients, people you've worked with in the past, or people like existing clients, like things are going well and you have a good relationship. So those are some examples. People who work with a similar ICP. So this could be like peer agencies or people who have similar ICP target, but maybe different services where you could be good referral partners for each other. And then other things, like call it affinity network. So, school alumni groups, any like local community groups or like places of worship or any associations that you might be affiliated with. So just thinking about people who may have a good feeling about who you are, who know you, who have some experience for and can vouch for your reputation. I would say those are kind of a good like baseline of referrers.
I mean, within these broad categories, I mean, you can go super, super deep, right? Because even within, let's say, the people that work in a similar ICP, I mean, you're talking about like people who might do something adjacent to what your firm does and does something complementary. Or you might even do something where the ICPs are the same, but it's totally different types of work. Because I know, for example, like there's like fractional CFO types or even like legal services or just like even supply chain type folks who we've sent referrals to and also receive referrals from because maybe they work with the same kind of either B2B or ICP or CPG type of client. So yeah, it's very important to kind of dig deeper and see what those possibilities are. And yeah, I'm always surprised because like when I go through like, for example, my LinkedIn connections and go through like who could be potential referrers, there's a lot that you can mine from looking through that lens.
And the other thing about the network is that you never know who will be the referrer. That person in your list may not be the referrer, but they may know somebody who then knows somebody. Like you can be a multi-step referral journey as long as the feeling of appreciation from the first person can pass through to the next person who can then, it's like passing, each person is vouching for you. So by the time it gets to the person who needs what you provide, that's where the connection gets made.
Exactly. No, this is
Yeah.
classic like network building, honestly, right? Because it's like you realize, hey, a lot of times your first degree connection, trying to get a conversion through that, like a referral through that, that leads to a deal, is sometimes like short, it could be short sighted. There's like a degree of patience that's required to do this right. And sometimes the best opportunities come because you've parlayed one relationship into another, that then leads to that big opportunity. And, that could be years in the making, and you can't be transactional about it. You almost have to be like, look, like you're just planting a lot of seeds. Some are something we can harvest at some point. Others, it might not bear fruit at all. How do you kind of maximize that and just show up, be authentic, be helpful, and then, the good things will happen. But like, it's that mindset, I think, which is really key to building up this engine.
Mm-hmm. Next aspect is how you ask. And one of the things I was kind of using open-ended phrasing. So like, who do you know versus like, if you know someone, it's who do you know who could benefit from the work that, we did together, for example. So it's making them think about the person rather than keeping it open-ended. And yeah, and just seeing and pausing and let them answer and think about it.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is also framing it in a way that you're not asking them for help. You're asking to help those people, the people that they know, that they care about. How do you help them get the same result and feeling that you had with your referrer?
This is so clutch because this goes hand in hand with persistence aspect of it, where in the book, The Referral Code, like they talk about once you ask the who do you know question, come back the next week and then check in again. And then, maybe a couple weeks later, check in again. And it's like, you have to kind of overcome that fear of like rejection or seeming needy. And you have to really believe that, you're doing this for the benefit of the people that they're going to refer you to, right? At the end of the day, it's not like you're not here to beg for business, but it's like, no, you're super confident in what you do. And you're asking this because, you truly believe in what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's like an important thing. It's like you're not demanding the answer right now. Like, who do you know? Like, tell me right now. Like, if they need time, and like give them the time, and but check back to make sure that you follow up and make sure they're thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. The other thing is just thinking about the right people. It's not about a volume game, right? It's not like, hey, let me blast all the people that I've ever worked with. It's, really thinking intentionally about who are the 5 to 10 people that can make the most impact, right? You could have the conversations and then those people could yield more introductions. It's like a leverage thing where it multiplies as you have more of these conversations, but it's not like you don't need to do like a huge cold outreach, a blast to get the results from this activity.
Yeah. And in many ways, like I think, with the proliferation of these like automation tools and such, I think people kind of want to lean towards like this kind of bulk. It feels easier, like you're doing it more, but like there's something to be said about crafting what looks like a real message or even like a text message or something that actually feels real and one-to-one. And so, yeah, I think that's something to think about. And along this topic, another book, if folks want to check it out, is called The Short List by David Ackert. And that has some really good lessons as well on cultivating like a short list, literally, of folks that you might want to continue to stay in touch with. And these might be like anywhere between 10 to 30 people that you want to continue to build relationships with and then continue to stay top of mind on.
The next layer is just thinking about how you manage the referrals. So let's say somebody refers you to somebody, keep your referral posted on how it went. Even if it doesn't materialize in a deal or didn't go through, just keeping them in the loop. And if something does go through, obviously like showing your appreciation, like sending them a gift, a note, taking them out for dinner, like whatever is appropriate for that person, just showing them that you're not just taking them for granted and it's like a transactional thing.
I know we said don't blast them if you can avoid it, but there is a degree of like marketing you can do to continue to stay top of mind. And so I think for all these people that end up becoming, part of your short list or just kind of your top refers that you're trying to stay on top of, add them to your newsletter, connect them with the social media so that they continue to be reminded of like the type of work they're doing, because people need reminders. I mean, I can't recall how many times like somebody that sent me a referral, for example, they need to be reminded like a year later, like, oh yeah, what do you guys do again? And it's like, yeah, it's always worth it because they're busy, and like, like they might have sent something that was useful, but then you might have also changed your type of kind of focus as well. So you got to stay current on that.
Yeah. And the top lesson from referral code, like the rule number one is you have to ask, right? You can't just assume that people will send you the opportunities just because they have a good relationship with you. And then they say the rule number two is keep asking. So
Yeah.
just keep asking, ask, and just the consistency over time will compound into, yeah, meaningful impact.
Yeah, they had a really fascinating stat in that. They said, like, I think only 5% of people are like natural referrers. They're just like naturally inclined to refer to others. So then that leaves a 95% of us who need the reminding to take that action. So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay. So we did talk about people in their state of appreciation and getting these kinds of more organic referrals. And we did say, like, look, don't lead too aggressively with incentive, trying to kind of get a transactional thing going, but then there's an exception. I think over the course of us doing the like working with various types of people, every now and then you come across these like super connector types who love making referrals, but also love stacking up commissions and it's almost like a sport for them, right? They're like, for whatever reason, they love to monetize their network, and which is totally fine. A lot of them come from like a sales background, or they just have a deep network that they can continue to mine for, and love just making sure people, they can facilitate certain kind of deals. And so for these type of people, it is important to just have that conversation of like, hey, we recognize this is what you would like to do. Let's enter some kind of agreement. And I think this is where things get a little bit blurry between what we talk about as like, this emotional side of referrals maybe becomes more of a partnership type of relationship. And so that's something to look out for. And it's not something to run away from. I mean, I think we've benefited a lot from that. And it's just important to kind of be intentional about what buckets you put these people in.
Yeah, I think that's the right point. You don't know what everyone's intention is or their desires or what motivates them. So it's a little bit of nuance to just like reading, the situation and knowing how you can help, yeah, incentivize or motivate the right people. So yeah, we talked a lot about referrals and the importance of referrals. And for many agencies, this is a significant source of new business. And if you can be intentional about how going through everything we talked about today, you can build a significant business on the back of referrals. Of course, this you have to invest in other channels and activities to build up your pipeline, but referrals can be a very meaningful part that you build your business on.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. So with that, yeah, just check out the referral code. I think, it's a really good read. I think you'll get a lot of ideas out of it. Yeah, we'll see you all next time.
Thanks.